No, we're not. Say it says 40 seconds. 35. Okay. Hello. Doesn't show my face, so.
Yes, Eli, we are live. Go.
All right. Hello everyone.
Welcome back to the second half. There you go, Eli. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. If it's Wednesday, it's Weird Hammer. Welcome to the Smash and Bash Part 2 list review, where we first start with our late entry here, BJ Salas, running Flesh Eater Courts. Now, while his entry is late, he's still a man's man. He's running not one, not two, not three, but 5 Terrorgeists and an abhorrent Cool King that doesn't matter. 5 Terrorgeists. Gentlemen, first off, what do we think about BJ submitting this list late?
I think it'd be fine if he actually named his dudes and read the pack. But, come on, BJ.
Come on, BJ. We need some
Couldn't
names.
name your heroes. All these generic riders of Terrorgeists. 3 of them just beasts.
I think 3 of them don't have riders. So,
nope.
Yeah, you can still name them, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
BJ. We still love you. You're still running 3 Terrorgeists. You're still running 5 Terrorgeists.
Right. So from a functional standpoint, what's this list doing? It's not overly complicated, right? It's 5 Terrorgeists. It's going to run at something, and it's either going to eat it or it's going to die. There's a little bit more finesse to it than that. But unlike a Sons of Bahamut list, it doesn't have the sheer number of effective bodies to just camp out on objectives, and it doesn't have the durability to handle a crackback. What it does have is a giant pile of mortal wounds, especially if he can roll hot or get the guy with a gruesome bite into combat.
Yep.
It's playing out of Gristlegore, so we've got at least one of them with the command trait that's going to let it strike first on the charge. So it does have damage. It's easy to kind of shrug at a Flesh Eater Courts list and make the mistake of assuming that it has nothing there. The list does have damage. That's never gone away. Terrorgeists used to hurt, they still hurt, and they will continue to hurt. It's just a matter of it's a lot more fragile than it probably looks. And
it is only 76 wounds.
Yes, exactly. If you respect its damage, you can play around the fact that it is a giant Alpha Strike sledgehammer. If you disrespect the list, it will disrespect everything that you put in front of it.
Consequently, if BJ manages to follow the plan, roll 6s and kill the heroes, you're in for a bad time. So,
yeah, if you don't kill the Terrorgeists before they eat you, they will eat you.
Yeah, pretty much how it works. There's not much to say for this list otherwise. Terrorgeists, go zoom. All right, let's move on to the next list then.
You don't want to name.
Resuming
the
his rest of the
Terrorgeist for him. I think we should name his Terrorgeist.
Yeah, it's fluffy. The Terrorgeist.
It's fluffy.
Go with Alvin, Simon, and Theodore for the 3 of them that have no riders, but you guys collect them all.
All right, resuming the alphabet back at J, we have a fellow weird knob, Joel Janis. If I said your name wrong, I'm sorry, but I love you, Joel. He's running Maggotkin of Nergal. He's running Drownman, which means, you guess it, all the flies, all the time. Showing in that Festus, his Lord of Afflictions, which he's got bonded to his Kron spine right there. And then he's just running Blow-Ab and some Puscoil Blight Lords, and then a unit of Blight Kings. Oh, and 1 beast. He added that. A little tweak from his Slambo list, which was just as many flies as possible, plus Kron spine, giving himself a little bit more variability, but the game plan is essentially still the same. He's got volume of attacks. He's hoping to hit as many 6s as possible to hit so that he can dish out those mortal wounds on disease points. And then he's got a Kron spine just to be like, hey, look, here's my anvil that has rend, which the rest of my army does not. It's a simple premise, but it's a powerful one because that Nergal book is pretty damn solid. And if he wants to, he can put that Lord of Afflictions in reserve and say, hey, Well, you can't kill my general, so you're not gonna get Kronspine Wild until I want you to.
Yeah, and the Kronspine's a really good piece in this too, because I mean he's gonna stick anything that he's in combat with. They're not moving, they're not retreating, and they're just gonna like bleed out to disease. So it's a good pick. Kronspine's so
Yep.
good right now in a lot of these lists.
Yeah, Jeff and Brian, you both have a lot of experience with Kronspine recently. You think that's a great addition into this Nergal
Yeah,
list?
I do. It gives them something that they don't have normally, like big monster, big damage attacks, and it's incredibly durable. Holds pieces in place while the flies zoom, grab objectives, hit squish your pieces. So it's just a good pick.
Yeah, I generally agree. Normally, your big hammer that you want is a great unclean one, but unfortunately, the great unclean one is slow, and this kind of has the other. This goes the other direction, right? It's really fast.
Yeah,
Or it
and
can be.
Kronspine's moving 12 and he flies, so he's trucking wherever he wants to go, pretty much.
As soon as he's wild, he's always running and charging.
The Nergal game plan is pretty straightforward, or it can be, right, in terms of get into a fight and lock the other player there as long as possible. Kronspine fits into that plan because, one, it can't die, and two, it means that most units can't get away from it. There's a few ways to get around it with things like Blood Knights that don't technically retreat, or units that can make in combat teleport moves. But for the most part, if you have no way to get out of combat with it, Kronspine's a good way to just pin down an enemy's army and force them to sit there and take disease points and play an attrition game, which is Nergal's best spot to be in, is force the opponent into an attrition game.
Yep.
Joel recently went 4-1 at Slambo, so clearly he knows
That's
what he's
right.
doing with this list.
Which was awesome to see. I think that was his first 4-1 after just joining us with GTs. He came to Lone Star, I think he went 3-2, and then he just kind of turboed it up. He was 4-1, preparing to go. He was 4-0, preparing to go 5-0 potentially. Managed to lose against Zach Kennedy, but I mean, like, who among us hasn't?
There's no shame in that loss.
There's no shame in that loss at all.
Absolutely.
Congrats on that, Joel.
And a little trivia for everyone else listening: like there are 6 Nergal lists, so if you're not up to date on that list, you should definitely look at the tome.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't mention is Festus is this nice piece. His spell is gonna just mess you up. It gives you basically a permanent -1 to save, and there's nothing that goes off. If you're within range and he targets you, -1 save rest of the battle, and he can do that again and hit different units. He can't hit the same unit more than once, but he can help himself basically give his whole army like extra rend against specific units. If you're not careful, this list will hurt you. All right. Moving on to John Early. I do not know what club you are from, John, but you are also running Flesh Eater Courts. 2 Flesh Eater Courts, that feels like 2 more than I'm used to seeing at tournaments.
John's with the Defenders, I believe.
Defenders, fantastic. Another Dallas person coming down. We got a good amount of Dallas people. Nice to see you guys come down.
I
This
already
one-
like this list.
Yeah, not as big Terror guys heavy, but he is running a bunch of ghouls.
I was gonna say, I wonder why Brian likes this list.
Brian, would you like to discuss the big piece staring you right in the face?
Mr. Big Drog Fort Kicker. A big pile of -3 rend and just 3 damage. This is a face beater.
Oh yeah, providing a nice big hammer and a bit more of an anvil in the 35 wound unit that the army doesn't really have. And he's still running 2 Terror guys, 2 hero Terror guys, and then a regular arch regent, and then just ghouls.
The use of a big anvil is, and that one that can keep up with the rest of the army fairly well, is one of the big things that Flesh Eater Courts really need. I believe Bill Souza ran something based off of exactly that premise fairly early into the edition and went 5-0 with it. So there's a good reason behind why that worked, and it remains true still.
Yep.
The army lacks an anvil. It has a ton of damage. It just needs something that can soak the fire for it while it gets things going. I would not be surprised to see Kronspine fill a similar role.
Agreed, and Kronspine is 125 less points, which means they can fill in those points with some more stuff. Terror guys are still only 300 points in Flesh Eaters, which is fantastic. Or you can just get more ghouls and players, whatever. But yeah, you're right. It
And,
was Bill who did it early on in 5.0, and then there were some other people who took a similar idea and still had success. So it obviously fills a hole.
Yeah, and the Archregent would benefit from the bonus to cast as well because there's some fairly powerful spells in the lore. I believe it's his War Scrolls, the one that gives you plus D3 attacks.
I believe so, yeah.
So, yeah, this list as is still makes a ton of sense. I would not be surprised if we start seeing Kronspines show up in the future, but the general premise is fairly clear on this one. There's 2 Terrorgeists and Big Drog, and support buffs to make those Terrorgeists even more scary than they are by default. One of them has a gruesome bite, so he's the sledgehammer, and his rider's casting flaming weapon. The other one looks like I'm not sure what the dermal robe is, but my suspicion is that that's built to be the anvil, or at least a little bit more durable.
So the dermal robe is +1 cast and unbind.
Okay.
So is Dark Wizardry, so he's looking at +2 to cast and unbind.
Okay, so we've got a caster that's moving forward, and a hammer, and then the anvil is just Big Drog. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And we've got another cast from the Courtier down in the Arcane Tone, and then I believe Archregents are 2 casts themselves. So we're looking at what 5 casts from this list, 4 unbinds.
Yeah.
5 unbinds.
Yeah.
Great amount of casts in this list, which is awesome when you have all those spells that you need to cast that are actually really solid and help out this list a lot.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, and then Spectral Host is going to give him a unit that could fly. If that unit can already fly, it can run and still charge in the same turn. And then if he happens,
Even better.
And if he happens to roll a 10 on that cast, up to 3 units can be affected by the spell instead of 1. So that's probably why he's going with the +2 to cast on that. So that's a pretty sneaky mean combo. I like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
That'll let him basically catapult the hammer Terrorgeist forward if it gets its spell off, especially if he can get some of the bonuses to a cast as well.
Yep.
So that makes a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of little pieces here to fit together to make that cruise missile basically work. The one thing that it's a little bit light on is going to be bodies, but with the summons from spending command points to call in extra troops, it might be a little bit more resilient on that front than it appears at first glance. There's more wounds on this list than it actually shows.
Yep, I agree. This is a really well constructed Flesh Eaters list.
This is a really cool. Yeah, I like this list a lot.
Here's hoping you run into Seraphon and actually outcast them because you've got the spells to do so. I like it. All right, Jonathan Lusk, another Nergal friend, running Befouling Host, which means he's going for the double tree. He's got his Beast's battle line, but he's bringing a unit of 20 Plague Bearers. My man, beautiful anvil in that, especially if he gets the fleshy abundance off from his great unclean one general. He's got a Bile Piper. He's got 2 units of Nurglings and Kronspine. I like this list a whole lot. This is really cool. He's got the Demon Leader, so he's starting with 2 trees. He looks like he's got the Plague Flail and the Massive Bile Sword, so he's not necessarily going for the super summon build, otherwise he'd have the Bell. But he's making his great unclean one essentially like a backhammer, and his Kronspine a front hammer. So he's got 2 big damage pieces that he can kind of control the board with, and then a Plague Bear unit to be an anvil somewhere on an objective, 2 beasts to kind of go out and just hit things and hopefully roll 6s, and Nurglings to kind of just be annoying places. They start off the board, they can come in by terrain, and then the Sloppy Bile Piper to be the annoying Sloppy Bile Piper that he is. I really like this list. This has a lot more spread out board presence and a lot of varied units that I think do a lot of effect. Oh, and I didn't even mention he's still got the Lord of Afflictions with the Split Horn Helm, so no command abilities for you.
Ooh, yeah.
I believe that it's the artifact that does it. I could be wrong. It could be the command trait.
I think that the command trait was I think it was mortals only, and it was
yeah, it could be the overpower.
It's some sort of overpowering stench. Yes,
Split
that's
Horn
the one
Helm
that
would
disables.
give him the 4
4.
Eli.
That's what it is. Okay, yeah. I get them mixed up because I usually just see them both on, so. But not
All
in this
good.
case, because he needs the unclean one to be his general so he can get the extra tree.
So a couple things that I see here is that there's not nearly as much speed as a couple of the other Nurgle lists, either through using the Glotkin or a bunch of flies or something like that. There's a couple harassment pieces with the Beasts of Nurgle that can push up the flanks and kind of tie things up if they need to, cause general problems. Kronspine can go fast and he can pin things, but I feel like it's almost better set up where Kronspine is going for a follow-up after someone else is committed. Now, the big thing to keep in mind here is that this is a battle regiment with one drop, so the whole thing is going to deploy in one piece, which means he's going to dictate turn order first turn, unless it's another one drop and he wins, and the other guy wins the roll off.
Right.
So I feel like the answer to the lack of mobility here is to make the call of, do I need to get on the objectives and let them come to me and just ride the fight out and counterpunch with the Great Unclean One and Kronspine, or do I need to let them move forward and make the charge into them? And I think that either one has some validity to it. It's the kind of thing that is going to be matchup and mission dependent.
Yeah, I think this going with the one drop is really smart because like that gives him, that lets him dictate that tempo so he can figure out what he needs to do in that case. So
Yeah, he's got
with the big hammers and anvils being slow, I think
Yeah.
he needs it.
Yeah.
And I think that answers
Yep.
that problem.
He's got a surprising amount of flexibility with this list, which is really cool. And one of the reasons I like it a lot. And I mean, like you say there's less speed, but he's got the speed in different techie ways. Like I said, the Nurglings can start off the board, come in within range of any of the terrain pieces, and then the beast can still just move, and then when he needs the Kronspine to go, if he gives away turn one, forces the opponent up the board, he can essentially surround him. There's a lot of play with this list. I really like it. It's a great list, Jonathan.
It's definitely a list that you're not going to be able to move.
Yes. Like I said, if Fleshy Abundance goes off on those Plague Bearers, that is a 60 wound unit.
yeah, that's not a good time when that happens.
With a 5 up board.
Yeah.
Well, he's got 3.
I think that execution on the list and generalship is also going to be extremely important. This isn't something where you can just say, I'm going to play the attrition game and run into the other guy and come out ahead, because positioning is absolutely
Yep.
critical, and knowing how and when to engage is going to dictate whether that is a viable strategy or just a way to table your opponent and lose the game.
Agreed. The only thing I think is missing from the list, which is hard to fit it because of points, is a Spoilpox Scrivener. Fantastic support for those Plague Bearers. Adding rend or attacks or whatever. All right. Jonathan Schlesius. All the way from Dallas. I do know that defender. Bringing his Ossiarch Bone Reapers, back out from his recent 5-0 run in Dallas in February. Bringing in the good old Petrifex Elite. Bringing Catacross and Archon. You love to see that. Liege, read the rules. Love it. Good name. Good name, sir. Read the rules.
That's great.
And then he's bringing 40 Mortek Guard, 10, 10, and 20. That 20 is going to be especially hard to move. And then he's trying out the Kronspine and Bone Reapers.
Wow. It's crazy.
Gotta love that Kronspine. I like it in this Bone Reapers list, though, because it provides a lot of rend that doesn't exist a ton of in Bone Reapers, which is nice. Otherwise, everything else is Catacross and Archon doing their thing, and the Mortek saying, hey, try to move me. Which is a lot harder when, Shield Wall is a thing, and they're rerolling their saves.
Yep.
Would anyone like to comment on this list? It seems pretty straightforward.
I think Kronspine's doing a lot of the same things he's done in the Nergal list previously, where it's a pinning piece in an army that wants to play the attrition game, rather than the Nergal strategy of a little bit of healing, a lot of ward saves, and a slow trickle of mortal wounds to you. The OCR version is a lot of recursion, and a little bit of ward saves, also rerollable armor saves.
Yep.
The same idea applies to them, right? Pin the other guy down, don't let him leave, force him to fight where you want him to fight, and just let the game end by being stuck in the middle of nowhere, fighting infinitely returning Mortek Guard that you can't walk away from.
Yep. He's likely going to get his Triumph. He is 45 points down. So he wants to make sure that he has that bloodthirsty Triumph for when he wants to make the charge, probably with the Kronspine. And he's only at 78 wounds, though, which, again, a little bit deceptive on the tankiness, because those Mortek Guard are likely re-rolling their saves because he can spam Shield Wall across all of them. And he's got the ward, a lot of regenerative power. So 78 wounds, it looks lighter than it actually is.
So Bloodthirsty is actually probably there for a backup. Kronspine doesn't need it because he already gets to reroll charges, and anything
Oh,
with
shoot.
Dominion Reign also gets to reroll charges. So I assume that's more for backline. If he
I
needs to make a
forgot he
charge
could
there.
do that. Well, fantastic. I forgot the Kronspine could reroll charges. Is there anything that thing can't do?
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that OCRs can't use the forward to victory command trait.
That's true.
So, or command ability. So they can't natively get reroll charges. So I actually see the reroll charge triumph fairly often in OCRs.
Yeah, that makes a
Just
lot of
to
sense.
Yeah, it does.
cover that hole. Kronspine, again, does it for free, or 400 points, but it's part of the package you're paying for, right? Worth noting that technically someone should be bound to Kronspine, but seeing as there's only one legal target, that's not much of an nitpick. That's an easy, oh yeah, check that box.
Yep. Didn't even think about it. Read the rules is the only legal bonding unit, so I assumed it was to him. Sweet. Well, looks cool. I would love to hear later how the Kronspine does in Bone Reapers. We'll be watching your list with interest, John. All right. Next up, we have Joe Carnwright bringing his narrative Stormcast list. He's another fellow weird knob. We joke about how narrative his lists are when he usually brings those big fulminators, but he doesn't have those this time around. He's got only 3 long strikes. He's worried about giving away those VP, so he's only limiting himself to 1 extra, and then just a bunch of liberators, vindictors. And then the piece de resistance, 4 Knight Judicators. Those are the guys with 3 rend on the bow, and I am not a fan of those. I've been hurt a little too much by those. In case you don't know, guys, Knight Judicators are 30-inch range bows with 3 rend. Do you like having support heroes? Because this list says no, you don't.
Kiss them goodbye.
I faced a list with only 2 down in the Austin Open, and all of my skinks died. All of my little skink heroes just dead.
We already have people hoping that they get to dodge this list, so it
Yep.
tells you everything you need to know.
Yep.
There's a lot of shooting power in this list. And it looks like so double holy command, so Thunderbolt Volley, call for aid. So there's a little bit of tech there in terms of saying if the screens die, the screens get a second run at it, or the screens can try to back cap another objective if there's a good position for it. He's playing Scions in the Storm, so he can either hold back and keep some of that shooting in reserve, give the turn away, and well, it's double Warlord, so actually he's probably going to be reacting to what his opponent tells him he's doing, go first, go second. So he can either bring them down right away, take a shot, or he can leave them in the air and not worry about the fact that he's giving away the turn. Get some free early VPs, dropping Liberators up in front and say, sure, kill a couple Liberators is fine.
Yeah, and he has
one thing-
the
go ahead.
coolest Lord Wizard on Bird Monster ever.
Yes, our TO here, Jeff,
Yep.
is currently going to be in the game. He's going to play 5 games specifically as a model on the field. I believe I can't tell what model is supposed to be. Some wizard riding a bird dude, because it's Stormcast and they have like 8 of those.
I'm pretty sure it's a Toralon for the reroll ones.
You're probably right. You could tell me it's whatever, and I'd believe you because it's Stormcast and they have 100 War Scrolls. At 285, it is a Toralon. Sweet. Well, Jeff, I hope you Tora everything. I couldn't find a good pun. I lost it halfway through. I apologize.
I will do my best. Let's see what we can do.
This is an interesting off-meta list. I like it. I feel like there's a lot of shooting. Its biggest problem is that there's a lot of very high-value shooting that really needs to connect because those Judicators do not have a lot of dice. So getting the bonus to hit, I think it's not a reroll once, right? It's +1 to hit when it finishes its move. So he should be able to get all of the Knight Judicators to be 2s and 2s. So I think they're 3s and 2s stock. So that's effectively 8 dice, 2s and 2s, 3 rend, 3 damage. Yeah, it's basically a get rid of the other guy's support heroes and see what they do when they just have to fight with their front line.
Yeah, I definitely think he's a painless, like attention to the meta. Like he watched us at Slambo, saw me Kronspines were, but like I don't want to even face it, so let's just go and shoot those things off the board. That's how I feel what this list feels like. Is look to deal with those threats long range, and just not even have to face them, and then just basically walk up to those points.
I feel partially responsible. I have faced Joe 3 times at locals, and every time I have bad touched him with my Seraphon, and I feel this is a direct attack on my heroes. Just get him out of there. So I'm sorry, Joe.
You heard it here, everyone. It's Eli's fault.
I'm sorry. He is taking 2 holy commands, which I think is really cool. I don't know if we mentioned that while I was looking at the chat, but Thunderbolt Volley and Call for Aid.
Yeah, it looks like he took the 2 best holy commands, so good on him.
All right, moving on. We've got Josh Cranston. This is one of our younger weird knobs. He hasn't been around that long. I know he was playing 40K before. I got a chance to talk to him at the Austin Open when he was playing 40K. He has since switched over to AOS and is playing the good old Seraphon list, bringing the Thunder Lizard because what else are you going to do? And he is a man after my own heart. He's bringing Lord Croak with Edge of the Gods. However, not doing my favorite tech. No Arcane Tome to get the extended range. But he's tricked out with all the fixins, Prime War Beast, Fusel, Beastmaster, Curse, because he's bringing only a 10-man unit of Skinks. But he's got 2 Stegodons and a unit of Saurus Guard to protect Croak, 2 Bastillodons, and giving himself a battle regiment to get lower drops while having Alpha Beast Pack with those Bastillodons to move them up and get them within range. Kind of mitigate their low movement there. And then he's got a Skink Priest with heal, just to kind of stick in the engine, heal the monsters, and keep things up. This list is cool. It's got 5 monsters in it. 2 Stegodons, 2 Bastillodons, and the Edge of the Gods. And then he's just got Croak to do Croak things. He's missing the Astrolith Bear, which I think you really need if you're going to be running Lord Croak. Getting the extra 3 inches, or 6 inches, plus the ward and +1 to cast is kind of super important for keeping Croak just relevant, especially if you're not going to do much more to extend his range. At this rate, his most important spell is outside of Comet's Call. Only has a range of 10 inches. Celestial Deliverance is not that big a threat if you don't get close to Croak. So this list is just basically running Monster Mash, big monsters. I'm going to do some casting and just have fun.
Yeah, it does have the Alpha Beast pack too, so he has the redeploy.
Yep. Which, unfortunately, does he have everything else in the battle regiment? So he has a 3-drop, so most of the time he is going to dictate turn a lot of the time, which if he wants to be aggressive, he can move the Bastillodons forward and then give the turn away. And then take the turn, or he can redeploy them back and then give the turn away and say, hey, come here. So I like it. He can use those Bastillodons to kind of smoke show, deploy them. It looks like a really fun list. It is, again, heavy on the monsters. I'm not sure Curse is going to be super good in this list because he doesn't have a heavy unit of Skinks. And maybe Guidance or Heal would have been better. But I'd love to see how you do. This list looks really fun.
Yeah.
At the very least. And I always love any list that has Croak in it.
Yeah, and we're glad you're not playing 40K. We're glad you've seen the light. So
also true. Not only seen the light, but also join the Lizard Bros. Up next, we've got another weird knob. We've got Josh Kennedy. He's bringing Stormcast Eternals, also Hallowed Knights. And I did mention this with Joseph. Hallowed Knights is the one where they fight on death, I believe. So he wants his stuff to die. He's bringing his Stormkeep. I believe this is the same list he was bringing to Slambo, which is just, oops, all Annihilators. You'll love to see it. This list was a thing back when that Stormcast book first dropped. It wants to drop a turn, drop a unit of Annihilators a turn, have them charge, have them do a bunch of mortal wounds, and say, have a good day. Would anyone else like to comment on this list?
So you say Hallowed Knights is no wait okay yeah. So Guard of Steel Soul is the real reason people take or take Hallowed Knights for the most part.
Oh,
the fight on death is nice. Yeah, his 5-up ward is keyworded to Hallowed Knights.
Did not know
so. Same as Joe's list. The reason that 5-up ward is there, or the reason that he's there, and the reason sub-faction selected is just to get the 5-up ward bubble.
That makes sense.
And especially with the relatively low model count that comes with a Annihilator build, it ends up being very important that Gardas is able to get into a position to make sure that those Annihilators don't say, die to unleash hell before they actually get to do anything. A couple mortal wounds from anything that does mortal wounds on 6s, which... pick what it is. There's a few things that do that, whether it's Sentinels or Bloodstalkers. don't think we have a ton of either of those that I've seen so far. I've seen at least a few Realm Lords. I think at least one I can think of. But yeah, point is, yes, long strikes. Those are a thing. So yeah,
Yep,
the point is that getting a ward save on those is important, and yeah, there's a unit of raptors there as well. So it's not all get in deep and swing. A lot of it is going to be trying to actually win that war and force your opponent into a spot where they need to spread out. Because the biggest problem that Annihilator balls always have is a good screening plan, and the biggest answer to that is to force your opponent to commit to something instead of just sitting in their castle. Raptors will do that.
That's true.
What does the steadfast march do? The Holy Command?
In charge.
Okay.
He's got those protectors too, so between the protectors and all the liberators, he's going to be capping on some objectives. The long strikes, yeah, they can drop out of the sky and just fire on somebody. The annihilators just drop and charge. There's a little bit more flexibility in this list than the classic annihilators unit. I realize there's only 2 units. I thought there were 3 before, so he's only going to drop 1 and 2 and then have everything on the board probably by that point to just try to hit you out. It's a really cool list. I know he enjoyed it a little bit at Slambo, and one of the reasons he wanted to run it back was just get more reps with him, which can't fault anyone for that. You get better with the list the more you play it. And that's true of almost any list that you can play.
Yep.
It's definitely an interesting Stormcast list. It's not one I've seen very often because it's not taking some of those big boogeyman pieces we normally see with dragons. It's got a few things like the Vanguard Raptors, but it's running a lot of MSU and it's looking to really control the battlefield.
Yeah, pretty tanky too with the 94 wounds. So
94 wounds, and a lot of that's on 2+
Yeah.
or better. So, or 2+ and then easy to get better, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yep. Randy's pointing out in the chat his grand strategy is sever the head, and so he's making a statement from the get-go with this list. He is coming for
yeah,
you.
he is a man's man for that one. That's awesome. Like that.
Which is awesome. All right. Up next, we've got Justin Grimminger, all the way from Harambe's Heroes,
Or like
bringing his Deepkin list. Looks like he's got a king, Aspect of the Sea, get that little teleport spell, doing a little bit of regen there. He's got Lotan, and he's got Volturnos. So interestingly, he's got Volturnos and Archelian King, probably to get the 2-time use of the High Tide, essentially, ability. Then running a unit of Thralls, a unit of Morsar Guard. So those are the fighting eels. And then a unit of Ishmael Guards, the defensive eels, and then Reavers. Shipwreck, and looks like Hunters and a Warlord. So not a low drop, high drop list. Interesting. The threats seem a little bit spread out, but he looks like the tech of this list is to just basically have 3 rounds in a row where he's going to get 3 units, then all units, then D3 units, always strikes first.
So I played against this list at Slambo. As I've said a few times, there's a rock, paper, scissors game in Age of Sigmar. Soul Blight is one of the answers to Deepkin. Deepkin is one of the answers to a lot of the shooting lists. Things go in a circle.
Can confirm.
Having played against it, I kind of know a little bit of what's going on here. One, I think Justin's kind of taking his foot off the gas a little bit and having some fun with the list. It's actually the double king thing is effective, but it's a little bit light on bodies as a result of taking so many big pieces with both the king, Volturnos, and the Eidolon. Eels are a little bit expensive for what they do, but the guy's proud of the way he painted them, and he should be. They look good. I like a good scale pattern. Other than that, I can say that Justin knows what he's doing. He's one of the bigger names in Texas, so
he won the Austin
even
Open
if it is
with Iron Jaws.
exactly.
So
even if he is taking his foot off the gas and playing what he wants to play instead of what he thinks is the perfect medalist for an army, don't count him out. This is a solid list and a solid player.
Justin's saying Volturnos is +1 attack. You can't double King Tide, but aren't they separate abilities? Can't you use them both on separate turns? Curious. Regardless, he piloted this to a 4-1 because his only loss was you at Slambo, Matt. So he knows better than me what he's doing with the list. And I remember he was talking to me at Slambo. This literally was just stuff that he could get painted in time and was in fact running up to the deadline, which Cool. I didn't get a chance to see it in person, so if you said it's painted really well, I'm gonna have to check it out.
And Sympathize is running
weekend.
up to those painting deadlines.
Yep. How was Kron's finding that wizard hat at Slambo, Brian?
Well, you can ask Spencer about the wizard hat, but Kron's spine looks beautiful.
Love it. Anyway, Justin, good luck. It'll be good to see you and all the other Harambe's heroes that we've talked about already this weekend. It's great that you guys make it up. Up next, if we can get the list moving, please. We have Mitch. It says Mitchell Seacott. He's just Mitch. He's running a Nergal list. Again, he's running Drowned Men, which means he likes all them flies. And as you can see by the battle line list, yeah, he's running all them flies. But he's got Grizzly Man Dick, a beautiful Lord of Afflictions. And then he's got a second Lord of Afflictions, which he did not give an equally good name. Mitch, I'm a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie.
That's probably not as Grizzly Man Dick.
It's probably not as Grizzly Man Dick. This is the list. This is the one we've been seeing with Nergal do really well. 2 Lords of Afflictions, all flies. I don't know how many are running a Rotbringer Cyst, but I like that this one is, because he's getting to choose the 1-drop. It's essentially the battle regiment for just Nergal. And you can fit a little bit more than normal in a battle regiment, or in the Rotbringer Cyst as opposed to a battle regiment. So he's bringing 1-drop with 128 wounds. He's going to deploy a bunch of it off to the side, and he's probably going to give the turn away and say, hey, you don't know where I'm going. Congratulations, why don't you move? And then he's going to come in and hit you with a bunch of attacks and maybe spike those 6s and just get a bunch of mortal wound tokens on there. It is what it is. He's got that Bloodthirsty Triumph at 1960. He's probably going to get that reroll charge on one of those units of 2 Blight Lords. Otherwise, there's not much to be said about this list. This list has one game plan. You're going to see it coming. The question is, can you do anything about it?
Make sure I understand the notation. That 1 extra Puscular Blight Lords is reinforced once, and they start at 2, so that's actually a unit of 4, right? So it's 4-4-2-2, not 2-2-1-1-1, right?
The 440s are 2, so 4-4-2-2-2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what, 14 flies plus the 2 hero flies for a total of 16 models. Count for 2 each, so 32 models for purposes of contesting an objective.
Yep.
That's the
low model count.
That's the one concern I have with a list like this, especially using the strategy you just mentioned of hold back, give the turn away, and try to counterpunch, is that really this list needs to be pinning its opponent away from objectives on a lot of games, or it's going to end up trying to catch up from a point deficit. Now, Nergal's good at that. It's perfectly well suited to grind out. And while there's not a ton of models, those flies are, 8 wounds each?
The flies are 8 wounds each with a 5-up ward.
And a 4-up armor save to start with, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So as long as it's not playing against someone who can outbody it on objectives, if it gets that matchup, Mitchell's going to have to go. Sorry, Mitch is going to have to just push in and prevent the other guy from getting to objectives. But with a 1-drop, again, you have that flexibility to react to your opponent and mission and say, here's what I need to do here is I need to make sure that they never start scoring, even if it's going to lose me some material tempo. Or you can say, I don't care if the other guy gets the objectives, or there's no objectives in no man's land. Sure, have the turn. I'm out of range and I can close fast because flies are relatively quick.
Yeah, all these do mortal wounds on the charge too, don't they? Everything in the list, pretty much.
Yep. Everything that says Dolor's Toxin, boom, mortal wounds on the charge. Those flies, they just deal mortal wounds. They try. Each fly has 11 attacks. You do mortal wounds on the charge. Nergal is basically stacking up the disease tokens and doing a bunch of mortal wounds. That's how it wears you down.
Yeah, this one might be more of like I get what you're saying, Matt, but I think this one maybe is more of like a go first pin list.
Yeah.
Since it's a 1-drop. But yeah, bodies are a problem, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's my read on it, is that this is probably take the turn and go. unless there's nothing in the midfield. Like if you're playing something like Feral Foray, then you'd be looking at, okay, this one I actually want to play the No Man's Land and take advantage of the fact that there's nothing there for you to do. Even then, maybe try to pick off an objective on the corner and force the other guy out so you get hold 1, hold 2, hold more turn 1. I don't know. Or what's it called? Veins where there's objectives that don't exist turn 1. Sure, give the turn away.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I like the flexibility. It does have either or. I see the aggressiveness that you guys are talking about more, but I don't know. I like the ability to freak people out. Half my army's in the sky. What are you going to do about it?
Is that your opponent doesn't know which of those strategies you're using until you let them finish deploying.
True. All right. On to Nathan. Again, another Maggiekin of Nergal. Another befouling host, this time with the Bell on the Great Unclean, which means he is going for the full summoning build. He's got Blow Up. He's got Lord of Afflictions. He's got 3 Beasts and a bunch of fly. Oh, no. He's running 2 Mind Stealer Sphinxes, the kitty cats from Warcry.
That's cool.
And a Burning Cat. That's cool. I don't know what the Sphinx does, but it's cool that it's going on the table.
Chance to fight last. Chance to force your opponent to fight last.
Sweet. So this list is also very light on bodies, lighter than Mitch's list that we were talking about before. So it's hoping to really summon some stuff early on. That's why you've got the Bell on the Guo, and then you got a Burning Head to do some AoE mortal wounds. Otherwise, I don't know.
I mean, it's got 2 large lads with Blobe and the Great Unclean One walking up to smash someone in the face. And you've got the Beast Nergal just basically do Beast Nergal things, being annoying, charging in, doing additional mortal wounds. And the Pusco Blight Lords getting out there, being fast and holding people down. So it's not as direct as some of the other Nergal lists we have, but it's got a lot of options.
True.
Yeah, and the Mind Stealer does the -2 bravery, so there's a bit of a bravery bomb going on too. If he's spreading damage around.
Yeah, with play tokens, you will. I hadn't thought about that at all.
I didn't know the Sphinx does that. That makes a lot more sense now to include. Okay. So he's looking to spread damage a little bit and hope those Sphinxes help him take down other stuff. That's cool. I like it a lot. It's a 4-drop list too. Who's he got in hunters? The flies make sense. Everything else in the regiment. Nice. Oh, and blow up outside too. It's a cool list.
Too many characters over 10 minutes,
Yeah. Sweet. Up next, we got good old Randy, a fellow weird knob, running back his Tempest Eye list from Slambo that he managed to go 4-0-1 at. Very cool. This list is the bane of my existence because it prevented me from going 5-0.
Rip.
Rip the dream.
I guess technically it prevented me from going 5-0 too, now I think about it. But I also prevented it from going 5-0. So there.
Rip all our dreams. Nah, this list is super, super solid. It takes advantage of the Tempest Eye rules, coalition rules, super freaking well, man. You've got the 4 dragons, because in cities you got to be running 4 dragons, taking advantage of those rules. You got all the Pistoliers, 10 Iron Breakers, the Hurricanum, Baba Bugman's Hollercanum, which, guys, if you haven't seen, you need to take a look at Randy's Hurricanum. He took a gun hauler, attached some chicken legs that are from, I believe they're Adeptus Mechanicus, some model legs, I don't know, 40k well. Sure, I don't know what that means. And he just attached them to a gun hauler base, and it's just basically a Howl's Moving Castle contraption, and it's wonderful. One of my favorite conversions I've ever seen. Simple, and yet so good. And then also he's got an Ironclad with a Navigator in the list to help give it commands and stuff when you need it. This list is fast. It is in your face. It shoots a whole lot. And honestly, this thing runs circles around armies. If you are not prepared for how fast this moves, you literally get run over and gunned down. I know Randy was wanting to hopefully get a new list into play, but unfortunately, with literally it being 2 weeks after Slambo, just not enough time. So I know he was disappointed he couldn't run something new, but nothing wrong with running a list that does well, man.
And he does know this list very well. He plays it very well. Like, he can be cagey, he can be very aggressive. he's very good at picking out what he needs to do to make this list work.
A lot of damage and a lot of mobility and a lot of ability to project those threats makes this list a lot more dangerous than it's very much more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of synergies here using the Tempest Eye, both the coalition to pull in different units to fill specific roles in armies that are outside what that normal army could do, as well as units to get, as well as buffs that don't normally go on those units to give them more horsepower than they normally would.
Yep.
It's very effective. I will say that in retrospect, the game I played against was described as the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, and the answer was neither one of them won. So we did. Sorry.
The answer was hands up. Let's go get food.
Yeah, the Pistoliers are a really good pick. Those things are so fast. They
shoot, they charge, shoot again.
Yeah.
He's got the Iron Breakers to provide himself a great screen for his Hurricanum, because that is one of the linchpins of the list. If you take it down, a lot of the output does decrease. Getting that +1 to hit and +1 to wound aura is huge for his army. But I can tell you from experience, even if you take down the Hurricanum turn 1, it's still a lot in your face.
Yep.
Turns out that round 1, when you have dragons at +1 to save, you have an Ironclad at +1 to save. It's just a lot of wounds. It's really hard to get through.
I believe the description that Wohammer gave this list after Slambo was oppressive.
It's a good word. Good word for this list. I legitimately put this on par with Gavin's Living Cities list. As far as cities lists go, this list is really, really good, and good pilots can do really well with this list. And I think Randy is a good pilot with this list. He knows it very well.
It is a shame that we won't get to meet Jeff and the 2-for-1 cuddle bun in the short span ahead to get ready.
Yeah, I was recruited by the Stormcast, so yeah.
I think that was a Battle Mage on Griffin. It had 2 heads.
All right, moving on to another fellow weird knob. We have Ryan Bounds with his paper plane.
That's great.
Wonderful. No. What's great is all the naming conventions here on the list. We have Fullbar, the Lord of Change. We have Kairos. We have Amaro Nonino, the Change Caster. We've got Bourbon, the Great Bray Shaman. We have Limon Juice, Aperol, and Limon Rind.
We don't have
for anyone
chili. There's no chili guy. We need a chili in there.
No, that's the pilot. For all of you that don't know, these are all the ingredients to make the drink paper plane, which is apparently too bougie for chilies, even those with self-respect. Now, getting onto the actual meat of the list, this is just a host duplicitous list that is taking all the lumps and hoping it can make up for all the extra VPs that it bleeds. Running all those pink horrors, getting the Lord Change, Kairos, Changecaster, and the Great Bray Shaman, just great spells, hoping to chain a lot of spells together and just out magic you so hard. The only thing I can say is don't get within 18 inches.
Yep.
If you get 18 inches, there's a giant magic nuke that's coming your army's way. Maybe even further if he gets that spell portal off.
There's not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. There are very few armies that are going to be able to compete.
Oh, but look, it's only 68 wounds.
Only. He's flooding the board with 68 wounds.
He's flooding the board with 68 wounds. Couldn't fit another wound in there, Ryan? Couldn't fit one more? Disappointing. And then he's got the Soul Street Bridge on there. Yes. How about instead 60 more wounds? But he's got the Soul Screen Bridge. He's going to teleport one of those units of pink horrors up to either keep somebody pinned in their deployment zone, since duplicit says you can't retreat from horror units, or he's going to spell portal you, get some magic into your back line. This list does what Zinch does. It is magic dominance out the butt, as long as you keep rolling successful spells.
And it's also again, remember that it's, even though there's already 120 wounds of horrors that are paid for and not on the board yet, it's also summoning army, so there could be potentially even more added to it. It's very much a workhorse in those leaders that are trying to do all the damage. while the horrors are just there to be obnoxious and flood the board with 30 wounds.
Pretty much. If you're a spellcasting army too, congratulations, you're now feeding into Tzeentch's plan. Big thing to take out in this list is the change caster. If you can take that out, a lot of that magic goes away. No chaining spells, as it were. Otherwise, it's fun.
Yeah. As already has been pointed out, the spell portal makes the effective reach on a couple of the nukes more than 18 inches. But the difference between a couple of nukes and all of the nukes is a lot of nukes.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 60 million more than anybody else. But it's Ryan bringing out Tzeentch for a spin, switching it up from cities. Hopefully they get that new tome in the summer, as seems to be the rumor. Maybe they'll actually fix Pink Horse. Anyway. On to Ryan Miller, who's bringing Lumineth Sire once again. Sire is the double Ether Quartz sub-faction. He's bringing Teclis, Lumelia Grimwalker, the Bright, the Cenari Cathlar, Edelin Silvercrest, the Owl Caller. I love these regal names. A Lord Regent, that's the horse guy, and I believe. And then 10 Wardens, 10 Wardens, 10 Wardens. And there it is, 20 Sentinels. With a Life Swarm to top them off, good. And a Spell Portal to extend the reach of some spell, probably Lambent Light. Because, yeah, he's got Lambent Light on all 3 of those Warden units. Because, in case you didn't know, guys, Lambent Light is kind of important to have Sentinels do what they do.
So with only 20 Sentinels, that's still enough to make a unit significantly. If you've got Power of Hishoff, which should happen most of the time unless somebody's got an Unbind for them, and you get Lambent Light off, it's enough to select a target and make it go away. However, the alternative is always going to be Storm of Searing White Light to say, I need chip damage everywhere, and that's going to be, again, mashup and mission specific.
Yeah, makes sense. I think if you want to kind of help yourself in this situation, the big thing is unbind the spell portal.
Yeah. Tech NATO is going to do a ton of damage. That's going to drop in.
Oh yeah,
it's still a thing.
It's going to drop in, and someone's going to get murdered by all those mortal wounds.
Yep.
That said, Realm Lords have a few things that they struggle with, and that's all. And it's always going to be. So as many rules and advantages as Realm Lords have, a lot of them are, I get to do this in this condition, or if this spell goes off, I have this follow-up to it. The challenge in playing Realm Lords is when the dice don't go your way, or you have someone who can effectively unbind against you, and suddenly you've gone from, all right, here's my game plan, I just need to execute it, to a piece is missing, where do I go next? And in those kinds of games, the list does struggle with the fact that it only has 77 wounds. It's one drop, and it's almost always going to use that one drop to go first, meaning it's susceptible to a double turn. And it doesn't know what's going to go wrong until after it's commit to that plan. So the main reason it goes first is trying to mitigate that 77 wounds by actually getting up protection of Teclis.
Yep.
So it's got a fairly predictable game plan. It's a castle. It moves in very sudden bursts, but is otherwise slow. There's no Dawn Riders or anything like that in here. Just the one Lord Regent with a move speed higher than 6, and Teclis himself. But usually, if Teclis is getting outside the castle, it's either the game's almost over one way or another. Either he's getting real desperate, or he's just going.
Yeah, well, they know the teleport too with Teclis, right? So one of the units can teleport.
Yes. Yeah,
yes.
Teclis knows the whole wind lore.
And I do like the goading arrogance on the Lord Regent. Sit him behind.
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah, sit him behind a block of the Wardens. That's pretty cool play.
Depending on what army you have, that goading arrogance can pretty much make that castle impenetrable. Yep. If you're running Suns, good luck. That's a quarter of your army that's not getting in.
That's the guy that catches the rocks from the big gate breakers before I go in.
Yeah. Still got to break through that -1 to hit.
Yeah, it's a solid list. I feel like I feel like I said, it's not a slam dunk win. It's not overpowered, but it can be really tough against certain matchups. It's a lot of mortal wounds. It has a giant toolbox, and if Ryan can pilot it well, it can cover a lot of ground. I think that his biggest challenge is going to be when something doesn't go right and he has to fix the engine and work around where his spells just didn't cooperate, or if someone throws Mega Gargants in front of him and just damage checks him.
Yep. If he does not get that protection off, depending on what turn it is, it could be a bad time, especially if he doesn't have protection and he gets doubled.
Well, I mean, he does have Life Storm too, though, which I don't really see in LRL too much. But
I feel like you should see it more.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, being able to top off the Sentinels or top off the Wardens is super helpful. So I don't know. That could include being an off-meta Emerald Lifestorm include. Only because we don't see it often. Up next, we got good old Ryan Rutherford out of the Sons of Slambo, bringing old Beasts of Chaos. What a classic list. I see multiple I see 2 Shaggoths, Beast Lord. I can't pronounce that name. Yikbrel, Senior, the Seer of Foul Portents. Funny for the bird pun because it's a Zangor Shaman on not on disc, just regular Zangor Shaman. And then Gores, 30 Zangors, 6 Dragon Ogres, and 2 units of 10 Ungor Raiders. Now, Matt, I know you faced Ryan at Slambo. Is this the same list that he brought?
I don't think it is. I think it's been modified slightly. I only remember 1 unit of Dragon Ogres. I think he said he wanted to bring more, but needed to get them painted, basically. So that may be more of them painted. And I don't see the unit of Zangor Enlightened on discs either. So that does look like it's a change to list.
No, I see.
There's a few.
There's a 30 Zangor unit.
No, not 30 Zangor on foot. 6 Enlightened on discs.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably what's the swap then. The 6 Zangor for the 6 Dragon Ogres. Makes sense. Dragon Ogres are the tanky ones, right? Compared to what we see the Bulgors being the super offensive one.
Yeah, aren't they the ones?
They're both pretty punchy.
Aren't they the ones that there's a million of those at AOS Worlds and nobody can buy any? They couldn't get any.
That probably.
I think so. Yes.
Does anybody want to buy those? Those models need a new update.
Well, 250 points for 6 of them. That's not too shabby.
This is pretty
The
good.
thing that really stands out this
It's a
list
lot of
is
wounds.
just like Matt said, 196 wounds. This is a lot of beef.
Casual 196, casual 8 drop.
Yeah.
And it can summon more.
Yep.
From the
and
Herdstone.
recursion mechanics, because if things are near the Herdstone, they rally on a 4-up. So that wall of Zangors can just back up and refill losses. And it's already 2 wounds a model, 30 models, 60 wounds to start with. Ward save from the shields. It's hard to go through, even if you've got a hammer to go through the anvil. That's just a lot of wounds to fight through.
I love it. Ryan's in the chat right now. Is it at 6 Enlightened was the cost of a Shaggoth and 6 more Dragon Ogres? And he goes, is it effective? Maybe not. Is it cooler? Hell yeah.
I mean, I can't
Super
argue with
agree.
that logic.
Can't argue with that logic either. He's running beasts, and every beast player is a champion, especially after that white dwarf. If you don't kill enough of this unit, it gets another rend, and
and that's just a time thing too, where it's just turn 3. All right, we got 2 rend at a time. From talking to him after the game, I do think that the beast list has legs. One of the issues he pointed out is that, like a lot of older tomes, when you're fighting someone who either doesn't have the tools to deal with it or is equally a bit of an older tome, it works fine and it doesn't need any help. If you find an army that has the answers and can basically endure it and slowly punch back through it, it runs into a problem where it can still play the game if its spells cooperate, if things go its way. It doesn't take a lot to keep it in the game, but it needs a break to get a foothold. And if it does not catch that break or has a turn where everything just goes sideways, it can fold fairly quickly. So a lot of this, again, is mitigating when I don't get the toys that this army needs and the spell lore that's driving a lot of its power, when that doesn't cooperate, how do I handle this? How do I screen so that the turn isn't that devastating? And that creates an interesting challenge. The other challenge, and to Ryan's credit, I'm amazed how well he's rehearsed his rules, because he came into every game knowing I'm going to have to explain Beasts of Chaos to my opponent because they have no idea what this is, and I don't want to pull one over on him. So props to him for having that ready to go every game in record time.
When I saw this pull up, I'm like, I don't even know what this is. I know it's Ryan. I know he's a solid player, but like, I have no clue what half of this stuff does.
And here's the deal with Beast. I'm pretty sure there were at one point 4 Beasts of Chaos players in this state. One of them is in the chat and moved to Colorado. The other does not play competitive, and one of them hasn't gone to a GT except for this one coming up in like 2 years. Yep. So who knows what Beasts do? All I know is it's Ryan and he's going to run you over. Yep. Although the Beast players are in the chat saying that the Dragon Ogre is also way faster than they look. The Horn gives them run charge, and they're moving in the hero phase. Ooh. Congratulations. You're going to have 12 Dragon Ogres to deal with, and then the rest of the army.
Looking at their scroll, because I wasn't super familiar, like they have just a crazy amount of attacks. And with that Ren that they have, they just go straight through you. That
also... Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of the whole aspect, like quantity is a quality all of its own. It's just really going to cut through chaff, wound the bigger guys. Well, it's going to be good stuff.
And we barely touched on the Ungor Raiders, but once they get getting that extra Ren and being on -2, whoop.
I believe Ungor Raider. I don't believe the Ren works for shooting. I think it's melee only.
Well, you know what? They're still there and annoying.
They are a pre-game move that gets to claim objectives and get in the way and plays into the I have 200 wounds, can you do 200 wounds and force me off the objectives? Because if you go first to push me off these objectives that I've claimed at the start of the game, then I get to play for the double turn. And if you don't push me off these objectives that I've claimed at the start of the game and let me go first, I'm going to push them ahead of the objectives now and a different unit to actually sit on them. So now you've got 2 layers of various beasts to go through with some actual hammers and some threats behind there, which if you've now taken 3 turns to get through just the layers of trash that are in the way, now you can start fighting them turn 3 while they've got a -2 Ren in close combat. So those Ungor Raiders have a role, and it's actually fairly important. Screens are good. At the end of the day, screens win games.
Yes.
So you're telling me they're not just sitting next to the herd stone getting sacrificed so you could pull in a Jabber Scythe?
No, that's some random Dragon Ogre Shaggoth who will heal every combat phase, I believe. So he's going to deal damage to himself in the hero phase, and by the time he gets back to his turn, he'll be back to full health. Yep. He doesn't even have to heroic recover to do it. He just exists.
Ryan says it best. The Shaggoth is a one-man bleeding factory.
Yep. Basically a Kane follower, just Kane with the cow head on it.
Kane with the cow head. All right.
All right. Moving on, we have Ryan Sharp, who I forget what club he's from, but we're happy to see you all the same. Another Soulblight Gravelords player, Castelli, which means we like vampires. We've got a Coven Throne. We've got a Vingorian Lord, Mercy von Strahl. With the fixins, he's got Rousing Commander, Grave Sand Shard, very good artifact, Pinions, speedy zoom, and Prince Vordry with Vile Transference, and then 15 Blood Knights across 3 units, 20 zombies, and 20 skeletons. My man, I love the skeletons. A Life Swarm to top off some stuff. Interesting pick. I don't usually see Life Swarm and Death. Doesn't really need it, but cool. And then Cogs. Also interesting, I guess, for the Coven Throne. Most likely to be used, because that one is a wizard.
But so there's a lot. This might actually be Cogs used to get their charge boost, actually.
Oh, that's right. That's also what it does.
You can pull things out of outflank on the Blood Knights can come from the board edge, and now they're looking at an 8-inch charge instead of a 9.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And then he's got zombies to do what zombies does, stay outside 60 inches, people. And he's got 20 Death Rattle Skeletons to kind of be a nice little anvil. The only thing that I'm not seeing on this list that would be really helpful, no Necromancer.
I wouldn't even say the Necromancer is missing. I'd say the Graveguard.
I was about to mention that as well. There's also no Graveguard.
So with 20 Death Rattle Skeletons, yes, a Necromancer would make them more durable against a combat threat and let them turn into a fairly sturdy anvil. But there's no real hammer. The Necromancer, Van Hell's, and the Vampire Lord's command ability only work on summonable units. So excluding the support pieces for the infantry crawl, I agree with that decision with the way this list is set up.
That makes sense. Didn't realize Van Hell's was just summonable units. It usually just goes on the thing that kills me, so.
You think I'd have put it on the Blood Knights by now if they could have it.
God, no.
What?
God, no. Please, no.
Look.
So
I'm still gonna kill you,
what I see here is a ton of durability. Coven Throne's spell, or Coven Throne has a command trait, command ability. Give me enough tries, I'll say the right thing. That gives a unit +1 to hit, wound, and save. Lasts from the hero phase to the hero phase.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vengorian Lord is -1 rend to enemy units within 3 inches. So what you're looking at here is a way to potentially have a unit of Blood Knights on a 2-up save that ignores the first rend just for being near it, before taking into account the fact that it looks like all 3 of those are in Hunters of the Heartland. So one of them is going to get all-out defense.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So this is a very big durability play here in terms of just the value of those wounds is very high, and it's still 121 wounds. The skeletons and deadwalkers, I'm guessing, are more to do a turn 1 screen on some of the heroes, particularly probably Wardry, who wants to make a run across the field once there's an opening and things are pinned down by those nearly unkillable Blood Knights. The one thing to watch for on that front is that the Coven Throne's command ability is used in the hero phase, which means that you can't outflank, arrive in the movement phase, and have received a buff in the hero phase.
Right.
Timing's wrong.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Um,
Interesting.
the Emerald Life Swarm fits into this very well because, again, it's a durability play.
Yeah.
It's doubling down on I have something that's hard to kill and something that is going to pin you down. Now, what does need to start on the board is Vordry. So this may be a situation where the Coven Throne is just there to give Vordry +1 hit, +1 wound, +1 save, and just lob him across the field and annihilate something. Because Vordry is a can opener. He can hit a big unit and just shred it outright.
And there is something to be said if your hammer goes in and is a spellcaster, takes some damage, can't cast Life Swarm just to heal itself back up. Still bonded to it. The 3rd edition endless spells, you're not trading them with your opponent anymore. So once you cast Life Swarm, it's only yours until the thing dies. So
Don't forget, Vordry has a once per game heal himself for D6.
I didn't know that. Vordry usually dies in my games.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So effectively, if he gets Life Swarm and he pops his Blood Chalice, he's basically looking at 2d3 plus a d6 for an average of, about 7.5 wounds back. Plus, he's probably triggered the Hunger at the end of the combat phase for another d3.
Yep.
So let's push this up to about 9.5, 10 wounds, which is basically he was dead and now he's full.
Yep. On top of that, he's a vampire, so you can get the Cast-a-Lie buffs too, right, when he kills things?
Yes, locked to the Cast-a-Lie Dynasty, which is just fine here. He counts as an extra general.
Yeah, I like the way to buff the Blood Knights by not taking 10. It's a cool play. I think that'll catch some people off guard too.
Yeah, I like it. After Matt explaining this list is a lot cooler to me than what I thought initially.
And there's still some panic buttons here. He's still got Gravesand Shard. I think at this point, everyone on this podcast knows why that's good. Rousing Commander. It's Rousing Commander. It works on Vordry.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing that you mentioned. It works on Vordry. Huge.
It's mostly there for the Knights to let them be dangerous for a turn because otherwise they're a little bit light on damage. But after that, yeah, sure. If the hour is just wrong for them and you just need the big rend, Vordry has the big rend.
Yep. Are we assuming since all these 5s are lances, not swords?
There is no differentiation in the profile. The reason I
Right.
model mine with half lances, half swords, is so I can tell my units apart. It has no stat effect.
Got it. Didn't know that. But that makes a lot of sense. Now it makes sense why it's not listed at all. Cool. Well, good luck, Ryan. I hope your list does well. Next up, good old TJ from down in Harambe's Heroes with the big long beard and the big old hugs that he gives. Bringing the Lumineth down. He's got Zytrek, so he's going for super spellcasty. He's got Teclis. He's got a Relendra Spirit Weaver, the Cathalar with the command trait Fast Learner, which I don't know what it does. And he's got Total Eclipse for the extra spell on it, and Gift to Selenar on the artifact, and Lambent Light, because why not? He's got 10 Wardens, and 30 Sentinels, bringing the hammer right there. And then Spell Portal and Shackles to help protect his castle a little bit by preventing things from getting close.
Artifact and the command trait are mandatory for Zytrek, so
yeah,
that's why he took them. No choice.
Well, that I understand. I just don't know what they do.
I believe Fast Learner is you have an additional unbind, and you may re-roll it, or you get +1 to that second one. One of the two, I can't remember. The artifact is a 6-up ward unless Teclis is on the field, in which case it's a 4-up ward.
Okay.
Yeah, so extra. It's an extra unbind. And then the second time you unbind, you got to reroll on the unbind.
Okay, just the second time. That's what I
which
thought.
is really timing and
that
weird.
Yeah,
so weird.
Well, if you think about the first one being within range of the what's it called? The
shrine.
The
Shrine
piece.
Luminar.
Yes, the Shrine Luminor. If the first one's in range of that, then you can re-roll from your Shrine Luminor, and then the second one you can re-roll from Fast Learner.
That makes sense.
And if you don't need it the first time, then Teclis can use the Shrine Luminor because he's also a hero with infinite unbinds.
Shake my fist.
All right.
Teclis.
So I was thinking a couple of lists ago, I was thinking we haven't seen much Lumineth in the first half, and here it is coming in strong in the second half.
Yes.
30 Sentinels, that's a little bit more ranged firepower than a couple of the other lists we've seen up until now. But without the Lord Regent, again, that what do you do when your plan doesn't work is a little bit more prominent.
Yes.
The Lord Regent's War Scroll ability gives you a second shot at Power of Heesh. What TJ is looking at is it either works or it doesn't, and he has to cast it from the Sentinels. He can't just easy mode it from Teclis and say, can you unbind in 10? If not, it's home free. He actually has to roll the dice for that and see how that goes. Soul Snare Shackles and 3 units of Wardens is looking like this is intended to be, again, the standard Lumineth Castle. Battle Regiment, 1 drop, go first, get your protection of Teclis up, and try to just plink your opponent apart so you can take the objectives rather than contested.
Yep.
This list wants you to charge it rather than having to charge you so that it can stay in Shining Company. Zytrek I actually like because one of the, as I pointed out, spells don't work and you have a problem. If you're playing Zytrek, each unit's first cast is at +1. If you're near Teclis, your casts are at +1.
Yep.
So once you're at +2 to the roll, you fail on a 2 or 3 on the dice, and otherwise you're looking at your opponent trying to win on an unbind. So the casts are actually fairly safe.
And then this Zytrek's one that has overwhelming heat, right? So it's the mortal wounds, and then
yes.
Is it half move?
That sounds right. Yes, and that is, I believe, I can't remember if it's all the heroes or all of the or all wizards entirely know the spell. I think it's just heroes.
I think it's just heroes as well.
It says Zytrek wizards.
Okay, so it's everybody then, if it's Zytrek wizards and not heroes wizards. But I like Zytrek a lot as well. I played a friend of the show, Derek, using Zytrek a lot, and it gives him basically a way to compete with Seraphon buffs. Not that there's not much else in the game that they can't dominate with magic, but Seraphon getting easy +2 to unbind board wide. It's a way for them to get their spells through that, which is really cool. And then it helps them when magic is such a focal point of you getting all your stuff off.
Now, does he need to list his extra spell for the Wardens and the Sentinels?
I believe only heroes get the extra spell.
Yes.
And it is listed for the
Gotcha.
Cathalar, and Teclis knows the whole lore, so no point.
Got it.
Yep.
Sidetrack Wizard Hero. Got it.
And I'm guessing the 30 Sentinels is more because the bigger stuff needs to go down better. And that's easier with 30 than with 20.
Yeah, I feel like I've fought this list before. It's nasty. I do like the Soul Snare Shackles, although it can be risky since we know that there's quite a bit of Kron Spines. So it'll be interesting how that plays out.
Yep.
So remember, Teclis can eat an endless spell every turn during his hero phase, so he's actually at almost no risk from his own Soul Snare. He can just delete it if it's in an inconvenient location. Though, I guess what you're saying is that Kron Spine could monster trample.
Yeah, Kron Spine can also eat the spell.
Yeah, he could eat the spell and
Yes.
get in big.
And it's a casting value of 6. And Kron Spine starts at +2 to that die roll.
Okay, yeah, that's a fairly safe shot then.
Yeah, I'm surprised he took Speed of Hish on the Wardens too. Like, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean, you don't need Lament Land on everything, so he has those to push those up if he needs to.
Especially, yeah, as you say, with the +2 on everything, the Speed of Hish allows the Wardens to stay in Shiny Company and still move.
So what is it, 10 inches up, or are they 5 or 6 base?
They're 6 base.
They're 6 base.
They're elves, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah, so 12-inch movement while staying in Shiny Company does allow him to spread out when he needs to.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the challenges that this list faces is that it does need to actually play the objective game at some point too. It's great for killing things. It's amazing for sniping out one specific target and just making it go away. But it does actually have to get on the objectives, and once it runs out of defensive cooldowns for that +1 save and the Aether Quartz, all at defense and Aether Quartz only gets you so far, and then it starts to fall apart. Doesn't have too many bodies. Usually the opponent can fall apart first.
Well, he got the Technado too, so he's going to be doing a lot of damage there as well.
Yep.
I don't think that. So with 30 Sentinels, I think this is a 90% of the time you Lambent Light something. And the other 5% are against Ideneth Deepkin, where you can't control your target anyway. They Forgotten Nightmares is still must shoot the closest target, not can't see, right? So that hasn't changed?
Nope, it did not change.
Okay.
All right, so Forgotten Nightmares beats Sentinels.
Yes. It beats Sentinels, then it gets in and kills Teclis.
I'm saying that those rules, the interaction favors Forgotten Nightmares, not favors the Sentinels.
Right, that's what I mean. And then Deepkin gets in and kills Teclis.
Yes, they have the movement to do it.
Well, all right, good luck, TJ. And I hope you have 0 fun. I'm just kidding. Only because you're running Teclis. Up next, we've got Trey Revstock, another Harambe's Heroes. He's running Stormcast. Looks like he's got hammers. He wants that ward from all the objectives. But more importantly, he's doing it because he's running Lord Commander Bastion Karthalos, the man, the myth, the legend himself. And he's running the even better part of this list. He's running Krondys and Karazai. 2 big dragons. And then he's running Maurice, the Knight Relictor. Yes, I love that his name is Maurice.
That's awesome.
With the Mirror Shield and Translocation, as you're one to see. And then 5 Liberators, and 5 Vanquishers. Going a little light on that battle line because, again, he's running 2 big dragons.
So I believe I played Trey with a earlier version of this list at Atomic, Eli, and he had a Drakesworn Templar in addition to Krondys and Karazai. So
yes, mad respect.
It's like you heard dragons were good, but like got it confused. But I love it.
Yeah.
No, so like this list, I hope he plays Evan, because that would be amazing.
Yeah,
the literal oops all dragons matchup.
Yeah,
For those of you
that would be an awesome match.
For those of you who didn't catch the first stream, Evan Miller is bringing Vorgrath, the big fuck you dragon in Khorne. So this would literally just be 3 big dragons on the table.
Yeah.
Does anyone else hear boss music?
Oh, could be beautiful. I love it so much. And Krondys knows Azra Halo. That is a spell that I know the name of, but I'm blanking on what it actually does right now.
I think 6 is to save, reflect mortal wounds.
I want to say that sounds right, but otherwise, like, I don't have much to say about what this list does. It has 2 big dragons. I think that tells you everything this list does. And the Lord Relictor to get one of those dragons where it needs to go. The big thing
Yeah,
is
I think that about sums it up, really.
yeah, the big thing is those lashing tails say bye-bye infantry, and and see what else anything
I
does.
mean, and it's got good support for itself. Like the Night Relictor can buff the dragons while they go do dragon things. Anything that can hit the dragons hard, they have to look out for Bastion because he'll hit them just as hard. You got the Liberators just kind of hanging back, doing objective taking things.
Yep. And
If I had to
Bastion,
guess, the Night Relictor is actually there to let Bastion keep up with the much faster dragons.
I was about to mention that as well, especially Bastion in general. Although, luckily, Bastion can support them well enough since he can put a command point anywhere on the board. So he can still command point those dragons from wherever. But I agree. I think that translocate is more to get Bastion where he needs to go to help, not the dragons.
At 300 points, you need to be swinging that hammer. He is good support, but at 300 points, you need to be swinging that hammer.
Yep. Well, good luck, Trey. I hope to see this list. I hope this list floats by my eyes, and I'm going to try to find it this weekend because I'm sure it looks cool.
Yeah. If we get the all dragon matchup, it's going on.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
Yeah,
if it
awesome.
matches up, it's going on the board. Up next, we've got friend of the show, Sons of Slamboat, Tyler Rabb, who was the guy I mentioned earlier, who ran Beast, has come into his first GT in a long time, but unfortunately, he's not running Beast at this tournament. He's running no monsters, rampages, and teleporting out of the sky. He's bringing Eldoria the Lamented, his Lord Arcanum, on Toralon with the fixins. He's got Mirror Shield. He's got Scintillating Trail, which is a mount trait that I'm not familiar with because I don't see many of these on the table. And he's got Lightning Blast for his spell. Then he's got an Imperitant and a Knight in Cantor. He's got 10 Vindictors, 5 Liberators, and 3 Annihilators. Makes sense. And then 2 Chariots. Oh, man. We love Chariots. At least I love Chariots. And then he's got the Everblaze Comet.
We definitely need to see more chariots in the game. Something I missed from original fantasy battles.
I love those chariots.
Yeah, chariots are cool.
The big thing about the chariots that sucks is that they do not have the elite ability, so they cannot give themselves command points. But I love everything else about those chariots. They charge. They take -1 to hit when they make a charge. And they shoot. They got decent rend. They've got decent amount of attacks. Solid stuff. They're fast.
There's Thunder Strikes, so he has the option to bring them down at 7 inches instead of the Annihilators as well. I suspect, though, looking at the list, I don't think that's the plan. I feel like the idea here is that either the Vindictors or the Annihilators are going to be the main thing to bring down, probably the Annihilators, while the Storm Strike Chariots try to keep up despite the fact that they are not in reserve, or they are a follow-up charge after the first hit is the Annihilators.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And he's got the Annihilators with Grand Hammer, so that kind of leans green to your theory. They're all offense, less defense. I'm not saying no defense because there's still a 3-up save base, if I remember correctly.
And the Everblaze Comet is also another way to throw some more chip damage in across the field, basically.
Yep.
I believe Scintillating Trail is a bonus to cast for nearby units. That sounds vaguely familiar.
It is -1.
It's one on the opponent to unbind.
That's right. It makes it easier for you to get a spell off by penalizing your opponent. That's what it was.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking up right now.
Another weird like interaction rule. Like, I think they just give it +1 to cast.
You think?
So that doesn't make it. So +1 to cast would make it easier to get the spell off and harder to unbind. This just makes it harder to unbind. So there is a noteworthy difference between the two. It also requires you getting closer to. No, you still need to be within. It's still a buff, not a debuff. So, yeah, that might be. Yeah, it probably would be simpler to just be +1 to cast, wouldn't it? I feel like it's a less good +1 to cast, but a +1 to cast from your mount trait is ridiculous.
Yep.
So as is, it's still solid.
It's still really solid.
Yeah. It's just a weird. Not that it's bad. It's just a weird rules interaction.
And it's a 12-inch range, while also not being able to be shot at within if you're outside 9 inches because he's got the mirror shield, so he can still get close enough, get something within range of the mount trait while not being being a little less susceptible for a crackback, which I like. And I'd like to point out that Tyler is taking Final Thunderstrike and Unleash Thy Hatred for his holy commands, 2 that we typically don't see. I like them a lot.
So Unleash Thy Hatred, that's the +1 attacks, right?
Yeah, it's a buff to paladins, so with all the annihilators,
Yes.
it makes perfect sense in this
Agreed.
list. And yeah, +1 attack sounds like what the buff is. I just remember it only works on paladins is the reason that you don't see it very often. But in a annihilator list, it makes sense.
100%. Yeah, it's +1 attack while they're wholly within 12 of a knight or wholly within 18 of a lord when you use it. Yeah, so it's definitely for the annihilators, and then the Final Thunderstrike to get +1 to your Blaze of Glory rolls for 1 combat phase, I think.
Let's be honest, that's a chariot's going to crash and burn.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be hilarious.
Absolutely, with those 12 wounds, making the 12 5-up mortal wound rolls. Love it.
I believe you can't do the bring back and die again from the Lord Arcanum. I believe that's been FAQ'd to say it doesn't work. You can string them along, but they either explode or they don't. You may want to check the FAQ on that if you're. I see Tyler talking in chat, which is why I bring it up.
Yep. This is a really cool list, Tyler.
I believe he said this is his narrative list that he's bringing.
Beautiful narrative. We love a good narrative here. The narrative is take some chariots and annihilators to the face, and I love it. Short stories are the best stories.
And true Sun Slambo fashion, the narrative is slam faces.
Yep.
Up next, we've got Will Karen, I believe he is our only Sons of Behemoth player, which is weird. I'm not used to seeing only one. I'm usually seeing at least like 3 or 4. He's bringing Taker Tribe, and which means he's got Kraken Eaters. He's got a Kraken Eater, a Gatebreaker. And 2 more Kraken Eaters. So 3 Kraken Eaters, 1 Gatebreaker. Beautiful. Brian, you are a resident Gargant player. Why don't you take this away?
It's kind of an interesting list because it's kind of off meta. Generally, you don't see Kraken Eaters taken as much. I expect
That's true. It's mostly just Chris Long.
Well, I mean, you'll see like maybe 1. You don't generally see more than 1 because there is a lot of confusion whether or not you can actually kick multiple objectives in a turn. The way it's worded is strange on the scroll. So we see TOs ruling it differently whether or not you can or not. And
That's
generally,
frustrating.
Kraken Eaters are one of the lower damage Gargants. And with a Gargant army, you really need all the damage you can get. But I suspect he may be doing this looking for objective control, but also to kind of mitigate priority target, because Kraken Eater is only worth 1.
Oh, the Kraken Eater is not 2 like the others?
Nope, it's only worth 1.
Oh, interesting. So basically his entire army each count as 30 models because of Take Your Tribe, and he's giving up less VP than an average Gargant, and still, it's still going to hurt. It's less punchy than a Gatebreaker, but it's still a Mega Gargant.
Yeah, and he's doing a few things to help mitigate his damage. It looks like he's really trying to like lean on the Wizard Gargants. He's got 2 of them that will be able to cast spells. Flame Weapon, I think that's what he's trying to use to mitigate his damage. But again, that's reliant on a spell roll, so that can be tricky at best, especially when they're not getting any native bonuses to their casting.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's a spell roll with no buffs, and as you well know, Brian, there are some armies that just say no, you don't get to be a wizard today. And that Gatebreaker does have an amulet on it. It's gonna have a ward, helpful for keeping it alive.
And that's really helpful, but it's gonna kind of be eating a lot of command points, because if it's gonna need that +1 to hit with all out attack, otherwise it's just gonna miss half its attacks. And I know I feel that when I'm running my Gargants. So
that's true.
It's a list that can work. He's definitely looking to do things differently, but I don't know. It's kind of an interesting list. I like Kraken Eaters a lot. They have great shooting. They can deal a lot of range attacks, and when they're going with hordes, they can pick out those troublesome models. So that's good, but ultimately, unless he gets those flame weapons off, his damage is going to be much lower than what you typically see.
Spencer in the chat is pointing out that the War Stompers are actually a double priority target.
War Stompers are 1.
It's
okay,
the
so Kraken Eaters
War
are
Stompers
2.
are the ones. The Kraken Eaters are 2. Yeah.
Well, then that. I'm just curious why he would go so heavily on the Kraken Eaters. Maybe he just likes them.
Maybe he just likes them, which I can always respect.
Well, and I can
may have built the list before 3.0 came out as well.
And again, I can understand, like, really the question is whether or not this tournament is going to allow Kraken Eaters to kick objectives, and rather they can't chain them, but it does each Kraken Eater get a chance to kick an objective.
Which can still be devastating in certain matchups.
Well,
that sounds like a question that I need to actually take some time and research somewhere between now and Saturday. Having not seen that debate yet, I don't have an answer off the
we can talk later. I'll show you.
Either way, it's cool. I like 4 Mega Gargants. I like that you are foregoing the 1-drop in order to pretty much stack as many buffs as you can on them. Any help you can get usually is great if you're not dealing as much damage as you could. But he's still got the 1K breaker to be as much of a hammer as he can be. And like I said, it's still 30 models a pop.
I mean, it's still solid. Like, our Kraken Eaters will rip your face off, especially if they got that flame weapon. It's just they tend to degrade much faster than the Gargants. And but they do have a nice utility, being able to kick the objectives and being able to pick D3 models out of unit that can be devastating against the right list.
That's right. I forgot they do the D3 instead of the 1.
Yeah, that's huge.
And again, I believe this was the original most prominent list, was 1 Gatebreaker and 3 Kraken Eaters back when, back at the start of AOS 3.0, basically. I think that was the big boogeyman.
Yep.
Because before then, you needed something to be battle line. They became battle line in AOS 3. So this may be just an army that was built and designed prior to the hunt. And now that the hunt is a thing, the landscape's changed a bit, and it's made it less favorable to play a hold objectives and try to tank a game than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you just say, I play the army that I've got and I've practiced and I know, rather than trying to buy another $250 Mega Gargant and fit things together from there.
Yep.
So I can understand that.
Yeah, with armies having caught up, Gatebreakers being more prominent just to get more damage in. So it makes sense.
There's also something to be said for, you don't have to do the same thing everybody else is doing. It's still 4 Gargants, and I think the only real weakness that the Kraken Eaters have is that they're mostly Ren 2 instead of mostly Ren 3, correct? They're still a fairly heavy hammer, it's just not quite as heavy.
Yeah. Exactly. Still cool list.
Yeah, Wizard Gargants is cool.
And here we've got good old Bill Clevin running Maggiekin of Nergal, more Drowned Men. He is also a Weird Knob. He's been around in our channel more so recently, which is cool. I know he's really excited to come to this GT, so we're excited to have you. He's got Captain Boar Punch, his Lord of Afflictions, that you really do not want. I'm reading straight from the list. And this is the Lord of Afflictions that we're getting used to seeing. It's got Overpowering Stench, although it's got an Arcane Tome. No Splithorn Helm, just Arcane Tome to get a wizard, because he wants to have that Rancid Visitations, which is the Horde Breaker spell that exists. It's only 7-inch range, I believe, and only 6 ups, but it's still 1 dice per model. Mortal Wounds. And he's got Orgots and Festus, and then 6 Flies and 5 Blight Kings with an Incarnate. There it is. I was wondering where all the points were. And then 1 Gnarl Maul because he's in Drowned Men, not Befallen Host. I don't really feel like I have much more to say because we've done 4 other Nergal lists already this review.
All different.
I'm in the same spot. They're all slightly different, but this kind of picks pieces from. It's very similar to Joel's list being Incarnate and a bunch of Blight Lords, but it also has a few different pieces behind it as well. So it's not, oh yes, we've seen exactly the same list 3 times. To Brian's point, they are all different.
Yeah.
But a lot of the game plans are very similar, and the justifications for why the pieces fit together are similar.
Yes.
I'm just in the same spot Eli is, where I feel like I don't have anything to say here that I didn't already say earlier. There's a solution to the army being fast. Kronspy means that you can't get out of the slow grind game that it wants to play. It gets there. It has bonuses to cast. It makes sense to me.
Yep. Yeah. Runs the 1-drop so you can pin with the Kronspine again. It's quick with the flies.
Yep, I can understand taking why you took the Arcane Tome. It's right there in the spell over Splithorn Helm. I do like that all the Nergal lists have a slight spin on it. We're not just seeing the exact same list like 4 different times. So it's really cool. You can see where each general basically took their list and switched things up to their own preference. And you always love to see that, especially when you see an army that's going to show up a lot.
And we haven't seen Blight Kings in the other ones, have we? This is the first time we're
No,
seeing
it's
Blight
the
Kings?
second time because Joel is running a unit as well. Yeah.
Joel's unit too. Okay.
But it's cool.
Yeah,
You
cool
got 30
list.
points down,
Yeah,
one drop.
looking forward to seeing. Yep.
And I think, is this our last list?
This is the last.
This is the last list. Now, that name means nothing. This is Tom Guan. If you've played at a GT anywhere within the last year, you've probably at least heard of him, if not met him, because he likes to make the rounds. Tom Guan, he plays pretty much anything and everything, is always borrowing or finding an army in some way and taking it to the top. This time, his flavor is coalesced with an Edge of the Gods. He's got Prime War Beast. He's got Incandescent Rectrices, which means he's got the artifact too. On a 4-up, when it dies, it comes back, negates all the wounds. He's got Beastmaster and Curse. Self-explanatory right there. He's got Croak. He put that as Stellar Tempest. That spell's not necessary. Croak knows the entire War Scroll. He's got an Ashleth Bear. Fantastic. With the Fusel. That makes sense when you're putting the Incandescent Rectrices on the Edge of the Gods. The Fusel's got to go somewhere. The Ashleth Bear is there to buff Croak, give him the extra 6 inches to range, put that ward around the little castle that he's going to make, and shoot something. He's got a Celestin Prime, so he's mitigating the lack of movement from Thunder Lizards with a big deep strike threat that's going to stay in reserve for a couple turns and then come in and smack you with a hammer. He's got Guard there to protect Croak, I see. 10-man unit of Skinks, another 10-man unit of Skinks, and looks like 3 Basildons with the Arc of Sotek, 2 on the bottom left and 1 at the top right. So he's got Basildons that he's just going to send forward and try to truck through some mortal wounds. Looks like he's putting all of them in Alpha Beast Pack, so his goal is literally to just send them forward and go. This is a cool list. It's a little light on battle line bodies because it is just running Bastildons and throwing them forward and then having Croak spell support.
It looks like he's got a.
The Arc. Sorry, go
It
ahead.
looks like he's got an interesting tactic that he's building here with the Horgast, because the Bastildon with the arcs are looking to do a lot of chip damage across the army. And the Horgast. The Horgast will stop you, inspiring presence. So you're going to see leadership fail, and you're going to see models run off the board.
Yep, I missed the Horgast. That pairs extremely well with the 3 with the 3 Bastildons because you're looking to just spread mortal wounds.
You're also looking at an Engine of the Gods that can roll for spin that up and do D3 to things that are nearby. Mm-hmm. You've got Lord Croak, so you're looking at Comet's Call. There's another bucket of D3s. You're looking at the Realm Shaper engine. So there's another. Can anybody go in the Realm Shaker other than this Ashleth Bearer? The Ashleth Croak could go in there, right?
No.
Croak's too big.
Croak's too big. He's got 18 wounds. He has nothing that can go in the Realm Shaper engine.
So he can't actually use the Realm Shaker.
Correct.
Okay. He still has a Celestin Prime, so there's another bucket of D3.
I was going to say, he's still got the Celestin Prime in the back, though.
Yep. So there's a bunch of overlaying buckets of D3 wounds just randomly being thrown around, and you can't use Inspiring Presence Endless spell. The other point I want to make is that those Bastildons, I believe, are not priority targets, correct?
These are not. No, it's Bastildons with the Solar Engine specifically, because 3rd edition split them up into 2 separate units.
That's what I thought. Mm-hmm. So this looks like 3 very well-armored pinning units that can get in somebody's face, keep them busy, and throw chip damage around, and just watch smaller units not be able to just watch Battle Shock do even more damage, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, and Hargast is no Inspiring Presence, plus isn't it an extra D3 fleet as well?
Oh, it might be, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of those, like, when the spells came out, that was when I looked at, and I'm like, that, if I played armies that like actually cast spells, it's a
really cool endless spell that I'm surprised we don't see get taken as often, and I like this list because it does take advantage of it in a really good way, and especially because he's got he gets the extra 6 inches range. I forget Horgast has a range of what, 8 inches, 12 inches.
I think
something like that. So being able to slingshot an extra 6 inches further away can add a lot of use. I can tell you from experience, like This is 12 inches? Okay. So with the Ash with Bear making it 18 inches is fantastic. I did a lot with Soul Snare Shackles. Putting it 18 inches away made it a great pinning piece. And the Horgas being able to slingshot all the way up the board, fantastic. What I like about this list is that it's kind of pieced together some strategies I've seen in other different lists that I've seen. You've got the Edge of the Gods with the Rectrices to be kind of a focal piece that is a lot harder to kill, with the Prime being a deep strike threat. We've got the Bastildon Arc of Sotek tech just kind of like turned up a notch, and we've just got Croak and just kind of pinning these all together and just creating something out of it that I think works really well.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because as you're getting pounded, like you got to worry about like Celestin Prime dropping in whenever he drops in and getting all his extra attacks and everything.
This list works very well as it. You get close to me, you're going to get punished. But if you stay far back, you're going to get punished too. And I really like that threat on that front. As someone, I ran Croak for three GTs. When Celestial Deliverance has a 16-inch range, it really deters people from wanting to get close. It's a really cool list, Tom. I look forward to seeing how you do, especially because I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Croak is going to be a little familiar to me because he's borrowing my model because he couldn't get one in time. So I hope you do well purely because I want to see my Croak near the top tables.
Nice.
All right. I think that brings us to the end. Are there any more lists? I don't.
That's it.
That's it.
We did it. We're done. We did it.
There are no more El Finito. And with that, we are done with our list review for Smash and Bash. A little bit earlier this time around, but nonetheless excited to have you all come down for a weekend of fun. Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. If we got tickets left. If anybody wanted to come in and still play, you can still come down and play. Just because we did the list review, it doesn't mean that you can't play. If you end up having the weekend off, you want to come down or whatever, come down and play. If you can't come and play, come down Saturday. We'll have paint masters up, no entry fee. Bring your best painted models. Just see some really cool models. Do all that, and then we are streaming. Eli, you want to go over the streaming plan since you're streaming DJ?
So myself and Stephen Mason, who is behind the scenes, we will be commentating 5 games this weekend, 1 game each round. Each of the first 3 games, we're going to pick what we think is probably going to be our favorite matchup, and then game 4 and 5, we're going to be streaming top level matchups. So come in for some great commentary, some sass jokes. If you like the way I kind of act on stream, I turn it up another notch on the broadcast. So it'll be kind of a blast. We'll be here on this channel, and then we will download the games later and put them up on our YouTube channel, also still /Weird Knobs. It's gonna be a blast. Get on stream or even come by and I'll heckle you. That's what I like to do. Otherwise, like seriously, if you got some free time, come by Smash and Bash. Come say hello. If you're not gonna be able to make it, turn on the stream. Say hi in the chat. We're going to try to monitor it the same way I'm doing for this show, and just kind of interact and say hi and that while we're trying to cast and having a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. I'm really looking forward to it.
And with us talking about Smash Bash out of the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that if you like kind of what we're doing here, if you like the battle reports that we put out, we got Matt and I's game Soulblight versus Seraphon from a couple weeks back up on our YouTube channel. If you missed that, go ahead and catch that. And if you like what we're doing here, go ahead and drop a follow. And follow us on Twitter. Jeff maintains the Twitter. I do a little bit sometimes, but it's mostly Jeff. And just kind of give us a little bit of support. We're going to be doing some more battle reports and stuff as time goes on, whether we keep live streaming on the Twitch channel or adding some edited stuff onto YouTube, because this is fun, man. We like it. We're going to keep pursuing it. So if you want to see what we're up to, keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're just trying to figure out kind of where we want to go, what we want to do, but we've definitely been having a lot of fun doing the streams and stuff like that. So absolutely going to see more of that from us here in the future. So
would anyone else like to say any final words?
What's everybody's favorite list? So I'm going with the Double Dragon list. I grew up in arcades. I'm the Double Dragon nerd. So yeah, Double Dragon, the Stormcast list. That's my favorite.
That's fair.
Eli, what do you like?
I can't be biased. I can't pick Tom's list because it's gonna have the best croak there. So I.
So what's your second
so
choice?
I'm trying to think of what we liked the first go round, and I really like the Skaven lists. I think were pretty cool. And there's one list that I really like that I can't remember. I'm going to toss my vote to Evan though because he's just bringing the big Vorgoth dragon, and yeah.
Well,
if we're gonna shout out Double Dragon, I'm shouting out Big Dragon.
In this round, what did you enjoy?
Good pick.
On this list, I think my favorite list is probably Ryan's list. Just because it really hammers on the inside joke that we had at Slambo. Get the full bar. All the ingredients are the paper plane. Yep. It's fantastic. On top of the fact that
that list was that one's a little bougie for me. But yeah,
on top of the fact that I like that he's running Zeech again and giving it another go.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Fantastic. Please bring a paper plane. I'll put it on stream. All right, Brian, what's your list?
I mean, you stole mine with Ryan, so let me think. I don't know. I do like Randy's list just because of the sheer utility. Like we were seeing a lot of creative lists here, but his just I think it really maximizes what a city's list can do. He's taking good pieces, really taking what he knows. He built off back when he first started with Caradron, then he moved into Stormcast, and he's just basically combining it into one beautiful list that just has a lot of answers to what we're seeing on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool how that list is basically the culmination of the progression that we've seen as he's played Age of Sigmar. Like you said, he started with KO, then he moved on to Stormcast, and then proceeded into cities and kind of took the best of what he learned from both the previous armies and just put this list together.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. It'll just take you off guard. It'll be in your face turn one or not, and let you give you the turn and then shoot you off the board.
Yep.
What about you, Matt? What'd you like?
Ooh, tough one. I think it's probably a toss-up between either Joshua's Annihilator Bomb or Joe and his giant Mimi Ball of Night Judicators.
Oh, that's right.
I kind of lean towards the Mimi Ball of Night Judicators.
Yeah.
Joe, I just want you to know that I hate you, but also that I love you.
Basically, yeah.
But I hate you.
Exactly.
Because you brought one of my least favorite units in the game. God.
I'm just really glad I'm not having to play against it.
Yeah, same. I'd much rather commentate on it than face against it.
Fair.
Wow, fantastic. I think with that, we're gonna go ahead and end it. So we appreciate everybody who joined in. Like I said, if you like what we're doing, go ahead and drop us a follow on Twitch and maybe give us a subscribe on YouTube. Otherwise, if you can't make it to Smash and Bash this weekend, I hope you can at least tune into the stream. Would love to see your wonderful usernames in the chat. But without anything else to say from us, I think we just have to say, see ya.